How's it going, everybody? It's Nick. In this video, I'm going to show you how to program drum patterns in a wide variety of genres. These are rhythms I think every producer should know. This is actually a follow-up to a video y'all seem to really enjoy. So if you haven't checked it out, we'll have it linked in the description. We'll be doing all new genres in this video. So let's hear what we're going to cover.
Get down, 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 bounce it.
All the drum patterns as free MIDI files available in the description, and also all the sounds I use in this tutorial will be available in a collection as well. Although I'm using Ableton in this video, all the knowledge in this video is universal since I'm working entirely in piano roll. So let's begin with our first genre, Jersey Club. I have this clocked in at 170 BPM. Throughout this video, I'm going to be referring to beats within the measure. So when I refer to beat 2, that's 1.2. Beat 3, 1.3, beat 4, 1.4. So the sounds we'll need for the Jersey Club pattern are this kick, this clap, 2 toms, and a little reverby perk tambourine. To single click notes in, we can use draw mode or hit B. And once we're in draw mode, we're gonna put a kick on the 1, the 2, the 3, and this is where the Jersey Club pattern is very important. This last half is considered tresillo. So if I look at this last 2 beats, this pattern of 3, 3, and 2, 3, 3, and 2 is a very important pattern in all of dance and rhythmic music. This really drives the energy for this genre.
Get down, get down, get down, get down.
Let's put the clap on 2 and 4.
Get down, get down, get down, get down.
And if we duplicate the loop, we can make the phrase twice as long. So now it's a 2-measure loop. And we can simply add a tom variation, a little fill here on the end 16th note. To adjust the velocity in Ableton, we can go down here, click and drag downwards, or hold command over the note.
Get down, get down, get down, get down, get down.
And velocity is important because that's how loud the note's gonna be played back. Let's take this lower tom and fill it in right before the higher tom. And lastly, let's just accent the phrase with this little tambourine reverb perk sound.
Get down, 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 bounce it.
Another variation you can do is add a upbeat hi-hat on the every beat, and the upbeat's the 3rd 16th note. So if I highlight this, notice I'm highlighting the whole beat right here. Command D for duplicate.
Get down, get down, get down, get down.
All right, next up we have Synthwave, which I have set to 92 BPM. So for Synthwave, we've got a kick, a snare, some toms. These are all from the Sample Magic pack. An open hat, and some tambourine closed hat, and another tambourine shake. For these patterns, I really wanted to show with one-shots. Generally using a tambourine loop would sound most organic. So in common time feeling, which a lot of genres are in this feeling, the backbeat or the snare is on 2 and 4. So let's just start with that. So the next thing we'll do is put in the kick on beats 1 and 2 to reinforce that. And we could kind of go with a full 4 on the floor. Let's hear how that sounds. But I think a fun thing to do is maybe like break it up a little bit by putting this little syncopation here. So that's just moving maybe this kick early. And let's go ahead, start filling the syncopation by getting these tambourines. Let's use, yeah, I think I was using this one and hold up. You can double click to get another one, or you remember use B for pencil mode. And I'm going to do a little variation here. Hold command and drag with the velocities. Sometimes it's nice to use like a 4-note kind of variation. So like all 4 notes are a little different. We can use this extra shake, tambourine shake, to put a little accent on the and make that a little softer. So this is one measure. We actually need to make this longer to match the musical loop. So duplicate loop, and we'll actually do this twice. So now we have 4 measures, and now we can have those tom fills maybe here. To add a little variation here, we can add a double kick. Reinforce that snare, and then we'll do a longer fill at the very end. And we can do same thing, like a little high, low, 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 low. And it's nice to do what's called a crescendo, increase the dynamics over time. So ramp it up. You can also highlight these 3 notes, hold command and drag a line, or control in Windows, and you can ramp the velocity according to that line. And lastly, let's use this open hat to emphasize the backbeat on the 1st and 3rd measure. Let's loosen it up with the next one. It's lo-fi hip hop, and I have it clocked in at 87 BPM. All right, so we have a kick, a rim knock, some closed hi-hats, and a little shaker to give some nice timbre variations, and an open hat. So pretty simple. Let's start with the kick on 1, and the take the velocity pretty high on that, and then the rim knocks on 2 and 4. If I click the piano note here, it'll actually select all of them in the clip. And if I hold command after I've started dragging him, we can turn the grid off. Notice the grid disables when you hold command or control on Windows. We're just gonna get this a little slightly early to give a little kind of swing. You can even add a little bit more. It's all, up to your desired taste. And we'll get the hat pattern in. So we'll get the closed hat here. I'm going to highlight the first beat. So that's from 1 to 1.2. And Command D. So it's on every beat. And just to make things clean, we're going to nudge that a little early to match the snare. And for the upbeat hat, we're going to put it right on the even upbeat. But that sounds a little too robotic for this. I'm gonna take it and again hold command as I drag, and the velocity we're gonna take it down. So as I drag further to the right, I'm actually now closer towards a triplet. And if you just use Command 3 or Control 3, that'll go to triplet grid. And I can see I'm at 1/16 triplet at the bottom. I don't want exactly triplet grid, but maybe I'll leave it on triplet grid. And that's pretty good right there. And maybe actually put a little triplet at the end here. Let's duplicate this and change those fills. So duplicate, duplicate. So now we have a 4-measure phrase. I'm going to take the 2nd measure, delete that triplet hi-hat fill we had. Maybe actually change the feeling and make 16th. So I'm gonna go back to 16th grid. I'm in triplet grid. So Command 3 to go back to, or duple grid, and Command 1. So just get into my 16th notes. And if I just kind of take these, maybe even a little alternate. I like the hi-hats have been a little early, so it's like a little late there. Just to give a little swing even. zoom out using minus on the keyboard. You can use minus plus to zoom in, zoom out. Just delete those and use that open hat we have. And this shaker, we're gonna just kind of duplicate. So if I wanted to maybe take all these, hold Option, drag them, so that's a cool technique. But then I'm gonna use B, get draw mode, and kind of remove a lot of them. So just kind of highlight, or accent every now and then, and even a little more scarce here. That's a really nice touch, actually. I could pan that even, advance, pan it left, pan it right, automate it. And just to give a little swing, we're gonna put a little more kicks. So just kind of forgot about my kicks this time. Went straight to the hats for the feel-in. Put a kick on 1.3, so that's halfway, kind of marks halfway between the rim, and then this little double bump. I could hear that again, so I'm just gonna highlight those, use Option, and drag the structure, so that way that swing's kind of maintained. And I'm just gonna make sure that velocity's up. Some variations we could use, add a little flams here. Might be a nice touch. So a flam could be like just a double note like this. So if I hold Option and then take this first note, take the velocity down low. So that sounds like very subtle, but nice decoration. So the next genre is jazz, and that's specifically like swing, maybe comes straight ahead swing. And I have that at a pretty fast 180 BPM. All right, for swing, we're gonna want to immediately switch to triplet grid. And again, we've established you can do Command 3 or right click, so triplet grid. And we're gonna base this on 8th note triplet grid. So I'm gonna use Command 2 to make that wider. And the most important instruments, let's go through them. We've got the kick, snare, but the most important are the ride. Two kind of variations of that. Some nice that was a rough or like a little drag on the snare. Some toms. That's the hi-hat pedal closing, very important sound. Some more snare and tom. Some crashes to emphasize. So that swing rhythm really comes from the ride pattern, and we're just gonna use pencil mode, so B, get it in there. This is the main pattern. And we established we can kind of take these notes and, take the velocity, make them different, maybe a little louder. The other very important element is the hi-hat pedal sound, and that will generally be on beats 2 and 4. So the drummer's kind of clamping on 2 and 4. That pedal's a little too loud, so we're just gonna Command drag. So that's a nice 1-bar kind of home bass phrase. And a lot of the other parts of the jazz pattern would be comping or just kind of improv among the kick, the snare, the toms. So let's kind of fill those ideas out. And these are just definitely some bass ideas. So we're going to duplicate the loop. So we have 4 measures. So the snare sounds really nice when it's off the beat on the second and third partials. So let's put the second and third, maybe even just take on the third, and then second and third maybe over here. This one's more drier, kind of like, this one's more of a rim shot. At the end of the phrase, so on the, after the 4th beat. The kicks would emphasize musical parts of the arrangement, so maybe the piano. So you can hear it, the piano emphasizes on the 3rd beat. We'll put the kick right there as well. And we can put a little grace note before it to give a little accent. And I'm actually gonna put that on the 2nd time around. Adding another syncopated triplet could sound really nice right here with the kick. And let's get that snare roll in there. So we can put that That would be nice to emphasize at the end of the phrase. And then kind of like a little kick response to that. Lastly, let's add this rough. So that sounds nice right there. Rough going into the kick. And let's get some more toms. So drummer would be improvising this, so you can really experiment with the tom placements, the snare placements. You know, sometimes less is more, but definitely just try to make it talk to, you know, the kick and snare, and be mindful of what's going on musically with the other instruments like this piano. This beat I don't have supported pretty well, and I could maybe like move these toms here with a crash. Put that pedal on the syncopated part. So definitely experiment with that and download the MIDI files so you have a nice starting point. We're taking the intensity up with the next one, and that is Big Room. I have the BPM set to 135, and I'm actually going to use triplets. So let's see how that's going to work. We'll need a kick, snare, a ride, 2 rides actually, and that kind of reverby snare, which we'll use as the fill. This is a 4 on the floor genre, meaning the kick goes on every quarter note. Next, we'll take the one shot crispy, kind of one of the shorter ride cymbals, and put on the 3rd partial and just kind of duplicate it across. For this snare, we're actually going to use it to fill in a lot, kind of almost like a pre-build section. So what we're going to do is put the snare in triplet mode, 8th note triplets, and duplicate it across. But we're going to accent some of them. So we're going to take the second one here, we're going to make it louder than the first one. So it kind of, if we solo the snare, we can kind of solo that. And we kind of want this, maybe the second one's loud here, but maybe the 2nd and 3rd louder here. And then for this, we can actually maybe Command 1, make the grid smaller, and get some doubling here. So let's duplicate this. And you can kind of hear it even on that last beat. We're going to use that super reverb snare, cut everything else. And we can just put this one longer ride to kind of emphasize, you know, every long phrase, maybe every other measure. All right, this next one was requested a lot from the last video, and that is heavy metal. I have the BPM set to 160. All right, so we've got a pretty dry kick because we're gonna use a double bass, snare, a half open hat. That's nice, that's gonna be very important. A closed hat, crash, low tom, high tom, splash, and a choked crash for the fill. So I think a good starting point is getting that half open hat on every quarter note. And we kind of want that double bass feeling right off the bat. So we're just going to take the kick and, you know, double bass. This is a fast pattern for a drummer to play. So this implies they may have 2 pedals, 2. And then we want kind of the snare on 3, get a little louder, maybe on 4 as well. So it's like a halftime kind of feeling. And get 2 other double bass right here. Now we want to, at this point, duplicate the loop, get it longer. So I'm going to hit the duplicate loop feature that I like using. Take away that second, the snare, to give some phrasing. Maybe add this is where we get the 2 maybe hats here. So they'll get away from that half open hat, get the closed hats, maybe a little velocity discrepancy, and then get some of the toms here. Those toms go. And then let's actually duplicate this loop one more time. So it's again 4 full measure phrase. And maybe at the end of this 4th measure, we can use this choked crash to kind of emphasize, take away the toms here. And add this non-choked crash at the beginning. So there. Just a little space for the guitar riff, those kind of 8th notes at the end. So just kind of make a little fill here at the end with some double bass and a tom kind of riff at the end. You can use a lot of kind of variations with the toms and the double bass pattern. I mean, if you just took this and maybe even, you know, those epic breakdown sections where you have a lot of you know, I'm not mad at that. Just kind of option dragging, getting some extra kicks there. To switch things up, our next genre I put in 5/4 time signature, and that is alt rock. We have the BPM set to 155. All right, so we have some excellent acoustic drum samples from that sound. We've got some kick, snare, like a dry snare, 2 variations of a closed hat, a little like top layer snare, and the open hat. And for this kind of alt rock, I thought it would be interesting to do 5/4 time signature, so something a little different. Keep the pattern pretty simple. But what does 5/4 kind of sound like? Well, let's just start with maybe something that's like the least complicated would be like the hi-hats actually. So that doesn't really outline 5/4. That's just kind of outlining the lowest timing. We're gonna keep this in duple time, so this like 8th notes. So just taking the 2 hi-hats and kind of like creating this. That first one might be too loud. I'm going to take the velocity down. Command A to highlight all, and then we can take them all down together. So before we put in anything else, let's actually duplicate this loop to make it 10 beats long. So it's like 2 measures. So stay with me, 5 beats here, 5 beats here. And we're actually going to treat this regular like 4/4, and then the kind of extra feeling is going to come at the end. So we'll take the snare. And this is the kind of top layer snare. We can use that to syncopate. Keep that kind of 2 and 4 feeling. Now this is where it kind of looks weird because it's lining up with the 2nd measure. Sounds fine. But then we get to the end, and what we're gonna do is add some snares right here, syncopated snares. This is where we get the odd timing, but it's kind of unique and it sounds nice. So then we kind of put in the kicks, pepper in the kicks, where a normal kind of rock kind of pattern would go, and that's kind of maybe on the strong beat and then before kind of the snare. Then maybe one right here. Get that open hat right before that rhythmic change that kind of really makes the 5/4 feeling come through. Actually, I kind of curious to hear it right there. And remember, all these patterns I'm showing you are meant to be played with and, you know, experimented with. There's no right or wrong to any of this. Our second to last genre is jungle, and I have that clocked in at 176 BPM. So we've got a pretty heavy kick, a few snares, closed hats, and an open hat. So I think one of the most important rhythmic characteristics of this genre is the interplay between the kick and snare. And if we kind of get this going right here, something like this is very, you know, common in this genre. If you just took this rhythm and threw the amen break on that, that would sound pretty authentic. We're not using any loops in this video, so we're doing this all with one shot. So we're gonna just kind of fill out some rhythmic feeling with the hi-hat. So if we just maybe use some 16th notes and just duplicate that across. Just taking the velocity of that second one down kind of makes it sound a little more musical. And then I'm just gonna duplicate this loop and kind of create variations. So let's duplicate it twice. We've been working with a lot of 4 measured phrases throughout this video, and hopefully you can see that that adds a little more musicality to your patterns. So maybe right away, taking the snare, I kind of wanted to reinforce it with another snare, and then taking the original one and maybe syncopating it every now and then. And I could hear it actually, instead of syncopating that a second time, maybe fill right there at the end. I can accentuate the kicks with this open hat. And just adding a little closed hat variations can be some nice ear candy as well. And have the snare fill at the end where we have the trade-off between these 2 different sounds. Finally, our last genre is drill, and I have that set to 155 BPM. Keeping it really simple for this last one, we've got kick, snare, closed hat, open hat, and clap. Let's take the clap and actually put it right on, the snare, and put it right on beat 3. And I'm gonna duplicate this loop so we get a little longer phrase. All right, so I think, again, the noticeable difference is we take that second snare, the back beat, and we move it from the maybe expected place, which is the 3rd beat, and either maybe move it forward, backward, remove it completely. I'm gonna move it backward here, and then the second time I'm gonna remove it completely. So I'm gonna duplicate and then remove it completely. So this is maybe a little different than trap, but this is what makes it unique. And I'm going to take that kick and kind of emphasize with the 808. And you hear a lot of these kind of maybe like quarter note kicks at the end of the phrase looping back to the beginning. The hi-hat bounce is very important. So the syncopated kind of trio pattern that we kind of saw at the beginning, which is that grouping of 3, 3, and 2. You see that? That's always the pattern trio. And it's kind of like if we had this, maybe take away that first one. And then we can even add a little syncopated pickup note, and maybe even kind of swing it a little bit by taking it in. Then I'm going to add a little roll here. So just Command 1 to make the grid smaller. Actually, put it right into beat 3. And we can maybe do some pitch modulation on that hat. If we go to the hat right here, we can go to transpose and maybe transpose that 1. Keep that kind of hi-hat bounce going here. So option drag is very powerful. Add another maybe a little hi-hat roll with another kind of pitch modulation. Again, we can do velocity modulation right here. We're on our command or control drag. Kind of like it, just emphasizing, kind of flourishing that little hi-hat. Cool, so those were patterns that I think every producer should know. Hopefully you gained some knowledge in this video. If you did, drop a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel because we're releasing videos weekly, and let us know in the comments what other types of tutorials you would like to see. As always, I hope everyone enjoys the rest of your day. I'll see everyone next time. Later, y'all.